phone has already been muted, so if you need to unmute, you'd press *#. For those of you that are dialing in by phone, please make sure your computer speakers are off or you're not also connected with speaker. If we do need to speak to you over the phone, we get a lot of feedback that way. As I mentioned a minute ago, I see a lot of people are signing in. Thank you in the chat box, just so we know who's here, and if we do need to reach you after the call, we have your email information. Or maybe others on the call want to reach you, so it's just a great place to exchange information. The presentations you'll see today, as well as past presentations, are available online at safehighways.org. Under additional resources, you'll find the FHWA Safe Highways tab for these presentations. All right, we want you to participate. We created this basically for all of you. This is your meeting, so we want as much interaction as you're willing to offer here. If you have questions, things like that, if you have additional information, the way your state model works, as long as you think it's something that's going to help your organization or others on the call may want to know about what you're doing in your state, we'd be glad to hear from you. Several ways you can do that. Obviously, this system has a raise the hand, the little person that you see there with the hand up. That just tells us that you do want to speak, and we can unmute you, or we can call on you to unmute yourself. You can also put your question in the chat box, and then Liz or I or someone will read that off for you if you're in a position. Some of you are maybe driving, or, well, I guess shouldn't be typing in the chat box, but if you're in a position where you'd rather we were reading the question, you can do that as well. And if somebody is on the phone and not on the webinar, can't raise your hand, just wait until there's a pause. We are going to ask for questions at the end of each presenter section, so we'll give you an opportunity to weigh in. I think most everybody on the call knows, but it looks like there's one or two names that I haven't seen before, so welcome. As I said, these calls are really for you all to share information. Liz and I and Nilo just coordinate that opportunity to provide all the SSP managers and supervisors just a place to share how the SSP program works in your state, and maybe some ideas you can pick up from other states. We also have some FHWA division administrators that join the call, and we are always looking for your feedback as well. It's somewhat tough to do this in a vacuum, so we want to know what topics you think this group should cover, or if you want to be a presenter, we'd love to have that as well. You can email us, pretty simple, ssp@safehighways.org, and at the end of this session, we'll have an opportunity of a survey that we can you can weigh in on what you think the next topic should be. So quick look at where we're going to go today. We're going to have an introduction. John McClellan from Minnesota is going to set up basically the topic for the day and share some of his thoughts and how we got to this topic. And then we're going to hear from 4 different states about their safety service patrol models, and hopes that you'll learn some things that maybe you can apply to your state, particularly if you're looking maybe to grow your patrol and don't have some funding for it. There's some different models that you'll hear today of how that's been done, or maybe looking to add the patrol in rural areas, things like that. We'll hear some different views of how different states are doing it, and hopefully you'll find a way to apply it to your state as needed. And again, we want to hear from you too. We can't cover every possible model with presenters, but we certainly can if the people on the call are willing to offer a little bit about what you like about your model, or maybe what you struggle with about your model. As I mentioned, stay till the end. We'll do a survey to hear what you want us to talk about in the next quarter's call. This is our 12th call, our 12th session, net webinar here, and it's the first of 2019, so Liz and I are excited to get this one underway. Before we do, this is sort of the commercial break here. I want to share to everyone that the ITS America annual meeting is going to be in DC this year, June 4th through June 6th, but they've designated that middle day, Wednesday, June 5th, as Emergency Response Day. There's going to be booths set up specifically for emergency responders. All emergency responders are invited to attend and learn from the displays and the seminars and demonstrations. Scott Yinger, who's on our call, is going to bring one of his Safety Service Patrol trucks, as is Sal Cowan from New Jersey DOT is going to have a Safety Service Patrol truck there as well. So you get to see the equipment and such on different trucks, but a lot of information shared that day specifically for emergency responders. So if you're able to put that into your schedule, we'd love to have you, love to see you, meet you there. And if you know anybody in that area, certainly you let them know that this day is happening. We'd appreciate that. And also, before we get started, I know, Nilu, I think you had some announcement as well that you wanted to share with the group.
Sure, thanks, Sam. So a quick announcement about another great resource that would be relevant to this group would be that we just launched at the National Operations Center of Excellence with help from FHWA, the Talking Team series. So those are webinars that are happening every month on the last Wednesday of the month from 1 to 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time. So we already had our first webinar on the business case concepts for traffic incident management data, and we had the example of Maryland and Oregon talk about their successes in this area. And the next one that is coming up in just 2 weeks is on April 24th, and that would be on technologies that are used, for innovating and improving your team program. For that one, we have Nevada, Oro Valley Police Department, and some others covering like what work they're doing in that area. So I'll be sharing a link to show you, to just share with you the announcement, also the sign-up link. So that's it.
Very good. Thank you, Nilu. Okay, Liz and I really rely a lot on the steering committee, and these are the members we have right now: Jason Josie of Georgia DOT, Todd Lease from Pennsylvania Turnpike Commission, and John McClellan from Minnesota DOT, who's going to be our moderator today. These guys direct a lot of what happens on these webinars, so we appreciate their help. We do have a spot on the steering committee for a 4th member that we're considering some people right now. If somebody on this call is interested in getting involved, we'd love to know that. Steering committee has basically calls prior to these quarterly calls just to look at the topic that we're going to present, and if you know people in the industry or have some ideas on maybe who would be a good presenter or how we should approach that topic, that's basically what the role is. So if anybody's interested in that, I don't think it takes too much time. We try to keep it to about an hour call, maybe once a month, I would guess, something like that. John, you can update that if I'm wrong. John is our MC today. Thank you, John, for doing that. John's a Freeway Operations Supervisor at Minnesota Department of Transportation, and John's been involved in, I believe, with the DOT since 2002, oversees about 1,000 cameras and the DMS boards, as well as their Safety Service Patrol program, which is called FIRST. So, John, I'm going to turn this all over to you, and you can take us through today's topic.
All right. Thank you, Sam. Appreciate it. And thanks to everybody on the call. Hopefully you can all hear me all right. Hopefully you guys are everybody out there is enjoying better weather than we are. We thought we were, heading in the spring with getting ready to start planting and thinking about putting the snowblower away, and now we got walloped with, I don't know, in some parts of the state it was a foot or over a foot. I think here in the metro it's like 6 to 7 inches of sloppy, concrete, hard, heavy snow and high winds, and it's kind of like the end of one of the horror movies where you think the horror movie's over and then the hand reaches up out of the grave and throws a snowball at you. So, but it'll all be melted by this weekend, hooray! And at least the timing was after the Final Four, so we can at least be grateful for that. So, so the topic that I was going to talk about, this is something that's just kind of bounced around in my head for years and years and years, and it was one of the first projects that I had to do, one of the first projects I was assigned to do when I started back 2002 was to try to do a survey of all of the programs that were like ours across the country, and it was bewildering because there were so many different programs. And and now 17 years later, I mean, that's awesome. It is awesome how many different programs there are, and I think that's a huge part of the success. Almost 100 from what I could find. It was in the mid-90s at least for different programs in the country. 42 out of 50 states plus D.C. and Puerto Rico. Everything from a volunteer staffed program all the way up to DOT employees running big rig tows, and then everything kind of in the middle there. And then you see, what programs work in different areas, the work that's been done both politically and in the environment, with the workforce environment and union environments, and what's allowable and what works in an area, and you can see how that's reflected in this this kind of the spectrum of different programs. I would say, considering the variety of programs, there's still some similarities, there's a couple of very key similarities. And for sure, everybody's very proud of their local programs. And the branding, at least for the ones that have come up with a specific name, whether it's Hoosier Helpers or Hero or Minutemen, the branding that the folks and the local folks know what it is that you're talking about. I guess the question that I would throw out to everybody here who's listening to this is, are we just individual fish in the sea with our programs in our area, and we're just kind of trying to do what we can do and do the best we can in our area? I would suggest that, kind of looking at this holistically, that starting points are what brings us together, and that there'd be some advantage in, thinking about this nationally, thinking about this, all of our little groups, not just within our area, but thinking about this from a big picture, and that a couple of the advantages that come to mind are the strength in numbers from an education of what exactly these programs are and what the value is for these programs, and with the key point being that, for funding. I mean, that is always the struggle, is funding, at least to keep what you have. Even better is to grow, to expand, to take very basic programs and turn them into something more, if that's usable, if that works in your area, if that's appropriate. And at the very least, trying to educate nationally, and then hopefully it then trickles down to a state level and then trickles down to a regional level, that these aren't nice to have. And it was it was sad to see a program very recently get described by kind of the same political influences as being, well, this is a nice to have. You don't really need this because people have cell phones. You don't need programs like this. And this program was changed and was downsized. And that's the same arguments that we had to fight here in Minnesota, 14-something years ago. And to have that be coming up now when, the national economy, we're not in the middle of an economic crisis, and that we still are that there's still programs having to fight to even just justify their existence. And then the other angle here would be the efficiencies in sharing information and sharing best practices, which, kind of relates to the idea of safehighways.org and these webinars. But some of the things, changes in vehicles. Things that are going to affect all of us, moving away from hybrids and fossil fuels to entirely battery-powered cars. What does that mean for us on a motorist assistance level? Does that mean that we, need to be prepared to charge up battery cars that die on the side of the road instead of giving them gas? The epidemic in distracted driving, and what does that mean to emergency responders? And the need for more traffic control and better emergency traffic control, because people think that the car is driving itself and they're just not paying attention, and that's just getting worse and worse. And then to the point when when the robot does drive the car, what does that mean for us? What does that mean to us on a motorist assistance level with connected vehicles? The car says, hey, I'm not going to drive anymore. I'm going to park right here. what does that mean for motorist assistance? Are there tips and techniques like, well, you need to, hey, clean off the sensor, clean off the LiDAR, clean off the camera lens, and now the car will decide that it's safe to drive again. And then emergency traffic control. Do our service patrols, do our units become mobile beacons to the robot cars and to the great cloud saying, here's an emergency scene? Is that what we become? Is that a role for us in the future? Is it something that we should be making sure that as discussions towards how connected vehicles and autonomous, how that plays out, that we have a role in that and what we're able to do and what the need is on emergency traffic control? So, the very basics, and this is the one that just goes around and around and around, is what do we even call this? Is this an industry? Is this, what exactly are we? And everybody, has a general, I think the public has a general idea. You say police, you fire, EMS, tow truck, people have a general idea what that means. It may be Hollywood, it may be TV influence, but they still have a fairly general idea what it means. But if you asked 100 people on the street, what's a safety service patrol? I would bet you majority of people would say, oh yeah, I did that when I was in 5th grade, 6th grade. Yeah, that's an important thing. That's a great safety patrol. Or depending on what part of the country you're in, hey, maybe it's these guys. They're also a safety patrol too. So you add in freeway service patrol, and that makes it a little bit more specific to the freeway, so at least it gives a clue that this is something to do with transportation. But not all these programs operate on the freeway. I mean, there's arterial programs, there's highway programs, there's city programs. So that's why I came up with, I propose that we call this all the fatty Rama. So freeway, highway, arterial traffic incident response, and motorist assistance programs. So take that ball and run with it. But it is possible, I think even with the local branding, that if you were going to, on a national level, try to zero in on a better description for what it is that we do, that it is possible to have the local branding involved. And fire departments have been pretty good with this too, or at least some fire departments have. I know New York City and San Francisco are a couple examples, and there's a shot from St. Paul, one of the St. Paul fire trucks. So how do you classify programs? There's so many different programs out there. Federal Highways made a crack at it in this write-up or in this manual from 2017. You can Google that, and they basically broke it up into baseline, mid-level, and full function. So baseline was pretty basic. It was just gas and tire changes, but it did allow for debris removal, and it did allow for some incident response. And then mid-level is kind of, I think, where most of us fit into, which is you do some incident response, you do motorist assistance, but you're not out there all the time. And then that's where the full function came in, is it was 24/7, not necessarily tow trucks, but that it was out there 24/7. So that's one way to look at it. I mean, certainly nothing wrong with that. It's one way to categorize. I would suggest another way to look at it would be a couple of core duties, which is, the simplest way, what are the simplest things that we do on the most simplest level? Motorist assistance, so which is basically a free program to get stalled vehicles off the road, and that can be anything from the easy stuff like gas and a tire change all the way up to a tow truck that takes them off the right of way. So motorist assistance is one. The other one is emergency traffic control. And this does not necessarily mean that you're an emergency vehicle. It's going more from the MUTCD idea of that this is the ad hoc, the emergency, cones and flares, and something that happens in the first 5 minutes, first 10, 15, 20 minutes in the initial period of an incident, in order to keep the responders safe and keep traffic safe and keep some mobility going through in the period before a full work zone gets set up, if it's going to be around that long. So most agencies, or most of these groups, most of the folks here on the line, we do both of these, but there are still some that only do one, or they only do the other, or they have one unit that does motorist assistance and a different group that does the emergency traffic control. And those are really interesting models, especially for, I think those are very interesting models to look at and to keep in mind as options, especially considering how the industry works. And then, so incident clearance then is I don't know if that's part of 1 and 2 or if that's its own feature, but basically, getting debris and then also push-pull-drag, getting the incident itself cleared out of the lane, at least to the shoulder. And then adding in then a fourth possible one would be maintenance work. So anything from light housekeeping, like clearing drains and keeping vegetation down. Georgia's had, I think, some pretty good success with their new program, with the CHAMP program, which was looking at this as being a hybrid between Freeway Service Patrol and some maintenance on a statewide level. I know there's other states where it's a statewide state service patrol, and they have some additional tools like a chop saw or something in case you had to cut guardrail in order to be able to do this emergency maintenance work. So some of the other variables, and again, just how many different programs that are out there. State workers, state DOT workers, and that can be a full-time, this is your job, this is what you get hired to do, this is what you do every day, like in our state with the highway helpers. But then you also have programs where it's not necessarily that the job is part-time, it's that you're part of a bigger organization like maintenance, and either you bid or you volunteer or you are selected to do this role. And maybe, though, if maintenance becomes a higher priority, then you get taken away from this and it goes away, which is what has happened in some states, that they can't run their service patrol when it snows because they're all maintenance guys, or maintenance folks. They all have to go back and do maintenance stuff. Union versus non-union, and that's a whole nother thing that's going to vary state by state and what the implications are for staffing. But also county, city works, county and city programs, too, that aren't going from the state DOT. Citizen Conservation Corp, that was a very interesting model in one of the states, and it was basically being used as I guess, kind of a workfare program in order to get folks an opportunity to learn a trade. And unfortunately, that program was one that was cut and changed over to be a for-profit that's starting this year. Direct contracted, so that the state or the government entity contracts directly with a tow company who does the work, or contracted via consultant, and the state has a contract with a consultant who then does the overview of the service patrol and perhaps other elements of the emergency traffic control or incident management. And then law enforcement operated. Whether it's a state trooper, like in Arizona, or a sheriff's deputy, like in Wisconsin, and I think in probably a few other states, too. So you can see how many different ways there are to have people behind the wheel and where they come from. Operational periods, so year-round, it's out there, year-round. Seasonal, so maybe only during, say, during peak tourist season. And then construction-based, and we've done a little bit of that here. And I think Randy's going to talk about that in Wisconsin, that having that program, I think that's something that's existed in some others, but it's also it is a good model for it, a good way to get one going. It's also one to hopefully to get funding, maybe as a way to tag in funding into a bigger project. Service times, so Monday through Friday, and there's programs out there that are only during the rush hours, only during AM and PM, so 4 hours at a time. Programs that are continuous, where it's one shift or two shifts and 16-hour days, 2 8-hour shifts, whatever. Programs that are that plus on-call, and I think that's probably going to lend itself more towards the emergency traffic control element than the motorist assist. And then 24/7, programs that are just out there all the time, 24/7. And then that's a whole another model as well. And then the other, the other variables, not even touching on the other big ones, so who dispatches it? Is it the state? Does the state TMC do it? Is it law enforcement that does it? Do the units essentially dispatch themselves? Hey, Unit 1, I got a call from a trooper asking me for me to come out there, so I'm en route. And they're, for the most part, dispatching themselves. And then what a lot of these webinars have focused on is the equipment. And there is such a spectrum in equipment and what's out there, everything from pickup trucks to vans, cube vans, walk-ins, wreckers, flatbeds, big rigs, and then all the way up to the rotators. So a whole variety of equipment that is out there. So throwing this out there for something to think about, you know, again, are we just little individual programs fighting, you know, in our little states and our regions to try to get funding to try to keep our programs going, or is this something bigger than that? And there's a little bit of discussion happening, some thoughts that are happening now towards looking at that, but it's something just throwing it out there and getting people's feedback and what you think. You know, these webinars are great, but, you know, is everybody on here getting what you need to know? Is there more? Is there more resources that would be helpful? I know something that would be helpful for me would be to, you know, what other programs are similar to us, and what other programs, and then who are the contacts, and then having a general idea of what different models there are, because the model that we have in the metro may not be the right model for greater Minnesota, but it's good to know other states that have these sort of models so that we can pick from them, or we can at least get some ideas from them. So that is it for me. So if, you know, as a reminder too, if you have questions, you can do the raise hand. You can put it in the chat box, throw it out to the open mic. I will. I'm not seeing anything here in the chat box, so I can. I don't know. I think maybe I'll go ahead and get on to Randy, because I know Randy's got to leave early. So I think I'll move on to Randy. If you have any thoughts or questions on what I was going through, you know, type it in there. But otherwise, I'll move on to Randy here. And just as I mentioned, he's got to take off early here. So if you have questions for Randy, be sure you put them in the chat box, and we'll hit him up before he's got, at the end of his presentation, before he's got to split. So our first presenter today is Randy Hoyt. Randy is a state active traffic management engineer and manages the truck parking Next Generation Wisconsin 511 and Freeway service team programs for WisDOT. He received a BS in civil engineering from Oregon State University and is a registered professional engineer in Wisconsin. Prior to joining WisDOT in 2013, Randy worked as a consultant to the department for 5 years, first as the oversized, overweight freight operations engineer, then as the work zone program manager. Earlier in his career, Randy spent 5 years as an assistant futures broker in the 5-year Treasury Notes futures pit on the trading floor of the Chicago Board of Trade. But there's some stories there. In his spare time, Randy coaches youth hockey and is president of the Brookfield Glacier High School girls hockey team. Go Glaciers. Today, Randy will be presenting on the 2 existing operating models in Wisconsin DOT with a particular focus on their work zone freeway service team. Take it away, Randy.
All right, thanks. Everybody hear me all right? Can everybody hear me?
Yep, you sound good.
Perfect. Are my slides? All right, so here we go. So thanks for that introduction, John. I'm excited to talk to the group today. So we'll get into, I'll rip through the history of this quick, and then I'll talk about how the program is functioning currently. So in 1998, Wisconsin initiated a pilot program called the Gateway Patrol. And this patrol operated in Racine and Kenosha counties, which are between Milwaukee and the Illinois state line. And it consisted of 2 vehicles that patrolled Monday through Friday only, no weekends. In 1998, there was also a pilot project with the Milwaukee County Sheriff's Office that provided a 1-ton pickup truck with a utility box that would do traffic incident management. In 2001, that program was expanded to Dane County, which is where the capital of Madison is located. So the pilot project found benefits in both the towing model and the law enforcement model, and it's interesting that kind of the advantages and disadvantages of each are that for the sheriff's model, the advantage was clearly that having red and blue lights on a patrol vehicle gets a lot more attention on the roadway. But they're only able to push relocate vehicles onto the shoulder. Versus the advantages of the tow model was that you can actually tow vehicles out of there, but sometimes, you know, amber and red lights don't get the same attention that the police do. So we move forward to 2008, and the enhancement Freeway Patrol, which was the the law enforcement model and the Gateway Patrol were combined into a new program branded the Freeway Service Team. The work zone part of this is all private tow contractors. And the reason that this was combined in 2008 is that funding was cut by the department for all congestion-based patrols. So in 2008, this moved to the contracted tow moved to only work zones. And that's how we've been operating ever since. So the law enforcement model is that the Dane County Sheriff patrols 13 miles of highway in the Madison area from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Milwaukee County patrols 43 miles of freeway in Milwaukee County for the same hours. Their primary focus is not enforcing the law, it's traffic incident management. However, they will enforce the law. So when they see a distracted driver, drunk driver, they absolutely enforce the law, or speeding. And both those are staffed by sworn officers. Again, they do quite a little bit of push relocation in both cases. I want to talk now about the whole crux of this. I want to talk about how our work zone freeway service team operates. So you'll see in this picture the truck changed. The Wisconsin entered into a sponsorship agreement in 2017. The trucks for work zones are contracted for the duration of the project. So if we have a 5-year project, that's how long we contract with the tow contractor. All of the trucks are specified to be flatbed tows. Some of the contract requirements that we have for them is that trucks can be no older than 3 years old. Drivers, some of the requirements that we have for the drivers, that they have to take a class. It's a 3-hour class that I present that educates them about the expectations that I have and the department has for them when they're operating. We also require CPR and basic first aid. We require RecMaster 2.3, and we require ICS 100. The reason going back to why we do it for the duration of the project, is that having a singular contractor out there for the duration allows them to build up kind of an awareness of the work zone and changes that happen through the lifetime of the project, and develops a good familiarity with not only obstacles in the work zone, but it also allows them to develop rapport with other first responders because they're working together over the course of years. All right, so the work zone FST is a traffic mitigation technique. So in Wisconsin, the goal of the department is to introduce no more than 20 minutes of additional delay for any project. So as the project is being developed and being scoped, and they start looking at traffic impact analysis, the need for, or identifying that there's going to be a delay greater than 20 minutes will be known years in advance. So some other mitigation techniques that have been used are, in extreme cases, a temporary bridge. Other examples are, temporary lanes. But it seems most often they like to use the freeway service team because it has such a great benefit-cost ratio. So the projects are usually very high impact projects in populated areas, or they could be projects that have very limited shoulders or counterflow are typically where we see them used. I want to tell you a detail about the project. So I get into a lot of calls from other towing contractors with complaints that our patrol is taking business away from them. So the integrity of the program is very important, and when there's a disabled vehicle on the road, our trucks will pick them up and they drop them at specified drop sites. So as part of the called an operations summary for our patrol, the drop sites are pre-identified. And we like to use public facilities, so it could be a rest area, it could be, we have park and rides, could be one of those, it could be a police station. So that's the only place they're allowed to drop them. And a secondary tow is what we call, so the motorist is dropped at a drop site, and from there it's the motorist's responsibility to get the car moved elsewhere. Our interest is just getting off the highway as quickly as possible. Another thing that we're experimenting with, just in tomorrow's going to be the first day that we're going to be doing it, is our state patrol uses a system called MOC. I know they use it in Iowa and some other states, and this is mobile architecture. It's their CAD system. And so our state patrol and a number of county sheriff's departments are on this. And what it allows you to do is you can see where all the law enforcement vehicles are. You can look at where there's a bunch of historical information as far as, where are they catching speeders, etc. But we are piloting one of our trucks. We installed MOC into it, which is on a State Patrol Tough Book. So we will be able to, State Patrol will be able to see where our truck is in the work zone, and that operator will be able to we'll be able to create events. So when he's on a call, he'll be able to identify that, hey, he's assisting a motorist. The other great thing about it is that when we have vehicles that are crashed, sometimes when they're dropped at the drop site, they are just left there because the cars are kind of old and beat up, and the owner just abandons it. So we'll be able to know specifically when that vehicle is dropped on a drop site so it can be removed. So we hope to roll that out to our entire patrol, but we're doing a pilot for a few months to see how it works. So as part of management of the program, we have to make sure that we're maintaining quality. So during the course of at least once per year, we will have a surprise inspection, and typically that will be myself or someone that works with me and a State Patrol motor carrier inspector, right? So we will call the truck phone, ask them to meet us at one of the drop sites, and when they meet us there, the motor carrier inspector will do a DOT level 7 inspection of the vehicle. At the same time, we will be inventorying the required supplies. So required supplies are everything from wrenches and zip ties and flares and oil dry. So that's been very positive because we've found several trucks that had deficiencies. So in this one, on this inspection report, it shows they found a defective brake hose, and interestingly, the lighting on it wasn't visible when you got it close to the vehicle. So it just kind of keeps everybody honest to make sure that we have good equipment out there. We also, the contractors fill out logs, and they're required to enter that. We have a website that is a database, more or less, that they have to enter within 24 hours of a shift ending their stop information. So this is just an example of a report that we put together. I think this is from 2018. But it just is able to show, how active the patrol is. And like other states, I think I probably get 2 legislative requests a year asking me to justify the program. And having this information handy is very helpful to be able to diffuse that line of questioning. So combination showing how active they are. I mean, it looks like last year we ran 820,000 miles and patrolled for 26,000 miles, or 26,000 hours, so pretty active. The other part of it is that we do a customer survey card, and it's important in there we ask a number of questions. The ones that help me diffuse legislative requests when people want to cut funding to my project is this that you can see. So this is over the course of 2 state fiscal years, and it shows that overwhelmingly the public thinks it's an excellent service and it's a good use of taxpayer dollars. So I would recommend that, I'm not sure if other folks have these same questions, but this is a very, very good data to have to show that it's something popular the department does. So that's all that I have. So I'd be interested in any questions folks have.
Hey, thanks, Randy. There's a couple of questions in the chat pod. Neil was asking if it was possible to get a copy of the contract for the Work Zone FST and also a inventory of the equipment on the truck.
Sure thing. They're both. That is in the contract. So yes, I can get that over to you. I see a question about maintaining funding. I'm not sure that's to me, but I wanted to point out something I didn't make before, is that For the work zone freeway service team, that is funded with project dollars, right? So the project has mitigation dollars, and that's how it's paid. So in Wisconsin, what we do is the projects identify the need. They create a project ID that is funding the FST. I then administer the contract. So I will have, this year we're running, I don't know, a half dozen patrols. So each one of those has a separate project ID. The project pays for it. I just administer it.
All right. And Bruce has had his hand up, but it looks like he's going to contact off channel. I think that's it for the questions in the chat box. I'll open it up here for a few more seconds if anybody wants to yell something out. All right. Well, thanks, Randy. That was very interesting with the program. So, thank you, and good luck with where you're having to run off to. And appreciate you.
I have to go negotiate with the Dane County Sheriff about their FST contract.
Good luck. Good luck.
Thank you.
All right, I will move on to go to our next presenter, Giovanni DiFabio. Giovanni is the Freeway Service Patrol Program Manager at the Metropolitan Transportation Commission. He is responsible for overseeing 14 tow contractors with 94 trucks in the 9 counties surrounding San Francisco Bay. Giovanni's role includes chairing an FSP Technical Advisory Committee for the Bay Area and serving as Vice Chair of the California Motorist Aid Committee. Giovanni has been with the MTC since 2014 with prior fleet management experience at a California school district. Giovanni is currently pursuing a master's degree in transportation management from the Mineta Transportation Institute at San Jose State University. FSP in California isn't your typical fleet. It's a statewide program with the local government taking the lead role by employing private tow contractors. Giovanni will be sharing more about this unique structure. Take it away, Giovanni. Well, hopefully we got Giovanni. Maybe some technical issues. If anything, we can, maybe we can, if we lost Giovanni, we can jump ahead to Scott if we need to. We'll give Giovanni a few more seconds here in case he's got to get unmuted or reconnected. All right. Well, we can circle back. We'll certainly circle back. Scott, are you on the line? And I'll jump ahead to you. Oh, I see a comment coming in from Giovanni here, so we'll see. All right, Giovanni's looks like he's trying to get himself connected in. We'll give him another minute. All right, Giovanni's going to redial back in, so we'll give him another second. I guess any questions up until now with the previous things that have come up, or any other observations that have come up while we're waiting? I know when we've done the surveys for the public are always great, and I wouldn't say this to anybody other than other folks in the industry, but I know there can be a tendency for them to be a little artificially inflated, because unless you require the drivers to hand it out to everybody, you absolutely require them to hand it out, there's a tendency for them to only hand it out to the people who had a positive experience, and the cranky ones don't necessarily get the survey. I know that's been our experience here, so I think there's a few products out there that have advertised other ways to do it, but not necessarily that that's a bad thing when you're trying to highlight the success of the program, but it's always one of those funny things, especially if you're a new manager, to keep in mind. Bruce, you want to go ahead and say something? Brucey out there? Yeah, I wonder if we're having some audio issues here.
Hey, John, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you now. Yep.
This is Randy. I had with that, with the survey results, I like the drivers to introduce themselves because I do share feedback with the towing contractors. I think it's nice, both good and bad, and I think it's very good when you have the operator's name included in comments. So it's just something like, I think it kind of gives them some positive feedback, and you can see which guys are, it seems like the same names come up over and over again.
Yep, that's a good point. Thanks, Randy. Giovanni?
Okay, I'm trying on my computer now. That seems like the phone connection was muted. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you. Is this Giovanni?
Yes, it is Giovanni. I'm going to hang up on the phone and I'll just use my computer audio. And give me just a moment here to.
Giovanni, I think actually it's so I changed some settings for your phone to be unmuted. So if you could just disconnect the computer microphone and use the phone.
Let's see.
Maybe we could give that a...
I'll have to dial back in just a moment.
And then just a reminder to everybody on the call, I think we were going to maybe unmute everybody to see if that helped with the audio issues. So just a reminder, if you're not, to keep your local phone on mute and not to pick up another call so we don't all get treated to hold music, which I know has jammed up some other conferences in the past.
Hey, good afternoon. It's Bruce Pettis. I'm testing my audio. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you, Bruce.
Okay. Hey, I don't want to interfere with Giovanni's presentation, but time allows, I have a couple of comments.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, the presenters are outstanding. I'm with Missouri DOT. I'm the incident management coordinator for the Southwest District of the state. But just one of the things that I've done, I've been with the department 24 plus years now, is that I use the traffic incident management self-assessment as a driving tool with 3 of my traffic incident management teams. And I just want to say that has been one of the most leveraging things that I can do after many years of struggling to get our program going. And, we went through the justification. We were the towing industry came after us years ago to shut down the motorist assist program. So I just want to comment that if you use the traffic incident management self-assessment tool, it really does help tie all the agencies together, and I can't tell you how much it has moved our program ahead. So I just want to share that.
Yeah, for sure. That's a great point, and yeah, we've used that here too in Minnesota as a great tool, and it is something too that allows some tracking too, historical tracking, to see where you've come and gone.
John, where do we find that tool?
So that comes from Federal Highways. So I think every state gets it. Paul Joden with Federal Highways, or talk to your local Federal Highways person if you're not part of that. But every state should be getting it.
I'll post my email address there as well. Anybody wants a copy, I'll send mine.
Thanks. Thank you. Okay, Giovanni, jumping in on the phone again, just checking if anyone can hear me.
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Sounds like it's working just fine now. So I'll go ahead and jump right in. Thank you for that introduction. Okay, so the Freeway Service Patrol program in California, it has a bit of a history. It actually started as a pilot program in Los Angeles back in 1991, and that's LA Metro was the lead agency on that. The San Francisco program actually started in 1992. And Also in 1992, the California legislature passed a law called the Freeway Service Patrol Act, and that's in our Streets and Highways Code. And from now on, I'll use FSP as our acronym. The FSP Act defines the program, including the agency relationships, the types of service that the contractors provide, and even such things as the truck colors and logo description. And so, as you see, my agency is the Metropolitan Transportation Commission. We are located in San Francisco, and our program actually encompasses 9 counties that surround San Francisco Bay. And in the graphic on the left, you kind of see all of the other agencies. There's 12 local agencies total that have freeway service patrol programs, and all of them work directly with the California Department of Transportation, Caltrans, and the California Highway Patrol. The agencies work with the local agencies work with the 2 state agencies by agreeing and signing an MOU, and they also execute funding agreements. So there are a lot of intricacies in our program, and I'll kind of give as brief of an overview as possible because our timing is limited here. And so I'm not going to go too much into what the trucks do, so I'm going to go more into our model of contracting with private tow contractors. Just bear with me, I'll go to the next slide here. There we go. Pardon me. Seems I have a little delay on my mouse here. So the partnerships. So MTC, who I work for, is the lead agency that manages most aspects of the program. MTC determines which freeways get service and how many trucks each of those freeways get for a particular beat. And we do have 28 freeway beats of varying distances. So the staff here at MTC as the administrating program is 1 program manager, which is myself. We also have 1 fleet manager who mainly tracks the truck via our GPS and telecom system, and she also monitors the truck movements. And we also have 1 telecom manager who manages all of the truck telecom, including the radios. We have an item such as it's called a cradle point in each truck that gives Wi-Fi to the tablets in each of the trucks. He manages that. And he also manages a few thousand call boxes here in the Bay Area, and he manages the call box and 511 Freeway Assist call center. So we also contract out a call center who can take in the call box calls and 511 Freeway Assist calls, and they decide who to pass on over to CHP, or if it's off of our FSP hours, they can patch them through with AAA or their local roadside assistance program or the Highway Patrol for other issues out on the highways there. MTC also manages and implements some innovations. So we do have a pilot right now where the drivers can self-dispatch based on a Waze notification, and we can kind of dial in the sensitivity on likely incidents via Waze, and those will pop up automatically to the drivers. And we have some research going on with connected vehicles, and as a previous presenter was mentioning, or being a beacon out on the roads, and so connected vehicles can see when there's an incident, and so we're just doing some background work on that. And then we also issue the procurement. So that first starts off with an RFQ, which is Request for Qualifications, and once the tow contractors get qualified, we invite them to submit a bid. We are a low bid, but we do know the costs of the program, so we can kind of reject or bids that come in extremely low or extremely high. Once a tow contractor is successful, when they provide their bid, they're providing a bid for all FSP services. That's including brand new trucks, all the equipment, the fuel, the driver, and providing all the FSP services. At the state level, here in San Francisco. The CHP consists of 1 sergeant, 4 officers, and 3 dispatchers, and their role is to certify the FSP drivers. They also provide ongoing training. They're kind of the field oversight. We don't use the word supervisors, but they do multiple inspections of the trucks. The trucks are inspected almost at a minimum once per month. And they also provide dispatch, so they have a direct radio connection to each truck. Okay. So some of the responsibilities, very similar to all of the other safety service patrols out there. We assist disabled vehicles with fuel delivery, flat tire change, jump start. They'll attempt a quick repair. Our guide says if they can attempt to do something within 10 minutes, they're allowed. If it's something that's going to take longer than 10 minutes, they're not allowed to do that. But if it's just a bumper that is halfway hanging off and needs to be pulled off and put in their trunk, they'll do something like that. And they also tow vehicles to CHP-approved safe drop sites. So those are off of the freeway. They are not allowed to recommend repair services or tows. They can only drop the person off with a method of communication, either using a cell phone or a lot of the drop sites are near, say, gas stations. They also clear vehicle collisions, so if it's a non-injury crash and it's in the lanes, they can push it to the shoulder. If there's an injury involved, they're there to assist with lane closure, and the scene manager, usually CHP, will direct them to stay or if they can go. And a lot of times for major crashes, a CHP rotation tow will come in and pick up the vehicles. They also assist with debris removal from the roadway. And if traffic is stopped, they can go ahead and safely get out and take care of the debris. They're allowed to do that. But in many cases, traffic is not stopped, and so they'll have to wait for a CHP traffic break to clear that debris. And just some quick statistics on our program. We have 94 vehicles. Not all of those vehicles are patrolling at all times. Some of them are backup trucks. And our tow contractors that have backup trucks are allowed to use their backup trucks for commercial service when they're not backing up FSP. So instead of decals on those trucks, we use magnets. And so last year we assisted approximately 80,000 motorists. We have a survey as well, and 98.4% marked excellent for us. I like that tax dollar question. I will be adding that to my survey. 581 miles of freeway. That's not all of our areas are freeways. In some of the rural areas, such as Napa County and Sonoma County, we have areas that are not freeways, but about 95% of where we patrol is on a freeway. The state DOT does a BC ratio for us, and our program is 7-to-1, and motorist reported response time is 11 minutes. I think I covered just about everything about our program briefly. If anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to take those now, or I'll be on the call later as well.
One question in the pod: can the towing contractor, can they talk to law enforcement directly on the radio? So
they have a direct radio connection with the California Highway Patrol dispatchers. The regular patrol officers are not on the same channel, but our 4 CHP officers that provide oversight to our program, they are on the channel. And so they usually coordinate through dispatch if they need an officer to come out. And our CHP is very supportive of the drivers, and they respond for assistance as if it were one of their own.
And that's how you do a traffic break? They kind of coordinate it that way if you're setting up a traffic break?
Yeah, so if they decide that they need a traffic break to clear some debris, they'll just get on the radio and call for a beat unit, and that beat unit will come out and meet them to provide that traffic break. It's never been an issue getting assistance from the Highway Patrol.
Giovanni, this is Sam. I'm wondering about the tow operators themselves. You take bids from several tow operators. What's in it for them? Do they do this for the the hourly rate, or are they doing it to get additional tow business? And how do you protect or keep a wall between them just getting additional tow business? I know some states have had concerns with that.
So we, the tow contractors, they do it for the money. They submit a bid, and we have a worksheet for them so they can kind of see what their profit is going to be. And in the San Francisco area, the cost of living is very high. So recently, our costs have gone up. But so we do have our contractors bid per hour per truck. So if they have 2 trucks out there, and they bid $100 an hour, if that truck's out there from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., they get $100 an hour for that. They don't get travel time, they don't get toll, and they don't get fuel or anything else. But that's what's in it for them is a profit. They, as far as additional business, the tow contractors don't really have much in the way of markings of their tow company on the truck. The yard where the truck is parked and the name of the contractor is on the side of the truck, but it's mostly branded as Freeway Service Patrol. They're not allowed to mention any or recommend any repairs or tows. They can only assist with a telephone. It's strictly prohibited if they were to recommend a tow company.
Hey, Giovanni, this is Jason Joseph from Georgia DOT. You say it's $100 an hour that the tow drivers are getting for that service?
So if, say, a contractor bids $100 an hour, we don't regulate how much they're paying their operator, except that we do provide a minimum wage, which is going up to $18 an hour. But in the market here in San Francisco, I don't think anybody's paying their drivers as low as $18 an hour. I believe they're in the $25 to $30 an hour range. But since we're not the employer, we don't get involved other than setting a minimum wage, which is a couple of dollars above the government local minimum wage in San Francisco.
Okay, so with that being said, do they have any kind of authority on those scenes, or do you guys set a kind of a guideline for the amount of time you want or need lanes cleared? Is there an average that you expect them to have lanes cleared, or is that totally up to the officers that are on the scene? How does that work when the tour gets to the scene? And is able
so how we kind of monitor the contracts is mainly we track the movements of the trucks. So we have a geofence set up on every freeway beat. And so we know when a truck has reached that beat at the start time. Most of the trucks start at 6 o'clock in the morning. And so if that truck is late, say by 15 minutes, when we send the check, we will deduct 15 minutes plus a contract penalty from that particular contractor. If it's a roving program and their scope of work requires them to rove, and if they're not roving and they're say falsifying an incident by sitting under an overpass or sitting on an off-ramp, we can kind of see patterns of things like that, and we do everything via contract enforcement, and we have the beat CHP units, the FSP CHP units that will investigate any abnormalities, and we kind of have a history and a trend of each particular freeway and how busy the incidents are. And so we know, like, if a new driver comes in and his assist rate is half of what the prior driver's assist rate is, that may need a little bit more investigation on why is that happening. But we have some rural freeways that consistently have low numbers, and we have some very busy freeways that consistently have more incidents than our trucks can respond to.
Is it a flat rate per hour on those legitimate incidents that may take a long time to clear, or does it go into a time and a half type of a thing for that operator that's sitting on that scene?
So we don't provide any monetary incentive per incident. We only pay for the time the truck is out there on the road. We do pay overtime. Say if a truck is supposed to be off duty at 7 p.m. and they're on scene and needed past 7 p.m. by 30 minutes, we'll pay an extra 30 minutes of the normal contract hour. And if the driver incurs overtime, it's the responsibility of the contractor to pay the time and a half for that particular driver. We only pay for the the truck and the body out on the freeway per hour, regardless if it's assisting somebody or not.
Thank you.
No, you're welcome.
All right, thanks, Giovanni. Any other questions that anybody wants to shout out real quick before we move on to Scott? All right, well, thanks a bunch, Giovanni.
Thank you.
Our next presenter is no stranger to this audience. Scott Yinger has previously presented to this group and is here today to share how Maryland DOT Emergency Traffic Patrol integrates both state and contractor workforces to operate its patrol. Scott is a retired trooper from the Maryland State Police. After 27.5 years of service, he last held the rank of major and served as Assistant Chief of the Field Operations Bureau. After his retirement in 2011, Scott became employed with the Maryland Department of Transportation's State Highway Administration Office of Chart and ITS Development, where he managed the emergency response patrols, and now as Deputy Director of Operations oversees the statewide and regional operations centers as well. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you, John. Hopefully you hear me okay.
Yep, you sound good.
Okay, very good. And thanks to, real quick, thanks to Travelers Marketing, Liz, Sam, and to the National Operations Center of Excellence for this opportunity today and for supporting these webinars. I've gotten real good information for my program from getting this group together occasionally, and it's proved to be very effective, so thank you all. CHART began about 30 years ago, actually, well before my time, began in 1989. And it started as a group of individuals who voluntarily went out from State Highway Administration, full-time employees, in whatever vehicles they could, Ford Broncos, pickup trucks, not really station wagons, but vans, and started with motorist assistance. They provided useful time. There was a void there assisting law enforcement with disabled on the road. So they started assisting motorists, and they started also with a program we called Reach the Beach. The governor at that time was very adamant. He wanted folks to get to Maryland's Eastern Shore to enjoy the resorts during the summertime, and they helped individuals get across our 3-mile Bay Bridge, which is a natural choke point still to this day. And that program over these 30 years has evolved into a traffic incident management full-time 24/7 program. It continues to evolve to this day. Back in 2011, we added some drivers from a private organization to the State Farm sponsorship, and we were able to add and supplement our full-time state DOT drivers with some contractual drivers through the sponsorship. That created some challenges. Bringing in outside folks to a very long-standing program to change the culture in the DOT, to welcome those drivers in and a new way of doing business was interesting to say the least. However, in 2014, and I'd never seen this in my state service, our administrator at that time was very supportive of this program, mainly due to the cost-benefit ratio of traffic incident management CHART program here in Maryland, returning in 2017 $40 to the Maryland taxpayer for every dollar spent, equating to about $1.51 billion in cost savings in 2017. She took the opportunity to double the size of the state workforce assigned to CHART and gave us 24 additional PINs, full-time state PINs, to add to our program and put us 24/7. So that helped not only the initial 24 drivers, helped to break the culture of the 24 original drivers with some new contractual drivers, now adding 24 more new full-time drivers. So we've evolved quite a bit, and it helped us get to where we are today. So we did expand to 24/7 operations, and we are 24/7 in the Baltimore National Capital Region, not quite 24/7 out in our western region, and we have statewide responsibility for special event planning. We patrol about 1,760 patrol hours weekly, of which the sponsorship of the contractors provide 200 hours, or about 11% of that. So it's not a 50-50, but it is a significant portion to what we do. In addition to that, we do have some maintenance folks that come out during peak hours in our trucks selected by us with support of their maintenance leadership, shop leadership, and they work the commute hours Monday through Friday, but they are, once again, like mentioned earlier, if they have to do maintenance duties, they do take priorities such as snow fighting. So we may not rely on those all the time, but they are a huge help during our rush hours, morning and afternoon, Monday through Friday. So one of the challenges that we found when we brought contractual drivers into the culture of a DOT that had been long-standing then to about 24 years worth of history, we wanted them to make sure that their appearance appeared to be the same, so there wasn't a visual difference between the contractual driver and the state driver. We brought them in, we introduced them, we made sure their qualifications were the same on their applications. That included background checks. We wanted to make sure that their training was the same, and again, there was some flexibility in the contractual agreement where they were initially hired to do simply motorist assistance type work. They did evolve into some incident management type work to protect incident responders out on the road. We made sure that they followed the same procedures and guidelines to the extent they can, and there are some differences between the two workforces of what they're able to do, and that their equipment was identical to ours, at least in function, maybe not in name, and their vehicles looked very similar to ours as well. So some of the operational flexibility and adaptability that we found a difference in here, once the contract is in place, we found we were very limited in scope with the contract, particularly when we went 24/7 and were working weekends. We talked to the vendor about their vehicles, their contractual vehicles filling in on the weekends, and they made it clear to us that the agreement only specified they'd work Monday through Friday and only certain shifts. So their employees weren't going to work the weekends where we had expanded to 24/7 operations. Now the state worker, you know, even though they're under collective bargaining and there are some union issues there, we give them 30 days notice, we can change their schedule. We found we couldn't do that for the length of the agreement, so we were kind of stuck there. So we had some better flexibility with the state workers doing other duties as assigned than we did with the contractual workers. So if you're looking at that contract, you got to make sure your scope of work is all-inclusive to the level you can. So where we needed the state workers, we could. But we found this on the night shift, the weekends. We do support in special events, FedEx Field, the Washington Redskins, and M&T Bank Stadium with the Baltimore Ravens, air shows around the state. And it's unfortunate, but the agreement doesn't allow our workers to work during those events because a lot of times they are on weekends, so they're very specific in the work hours and the locations of where they work and the scope of work they do, whereas state workers, we have a lot more flexibility with some appropriate notice to them, again, with the union guidelines. So some of the workforce stability issues, again, I just talked about some of that. We found some of those issues in special events in 24/7. We found that, you know, if you have a contract, and we've been through one renewal, and thankfully we've had the same vendor for both the previous agreement and the current agreement, but certainly there can be some issues when you go to transfer those duties to a new vendor should they win the next contract. That can create some issues within the services that you provide. Certainly there's a difference with the benefits package between the contractual workforce and the employee or the state workforce. The state workforce tends to be more long-standing individuals. We have some people here in CHART that have been here since the inception, so they do give us some stability. That can create some personnel matters, especially when it comes to state employees and union collective bargaining issues. It is pretty clear to me that it's more efficient. If you have a worker that needs to be separated for some reason, it's a lot more efficient through a contractual means than it is through a state employee, collective bargaining, personnel restrictions and requirements in managing those employees. So some things that are positive can turn out to be negative, and vice versa when you're looking at these two different types of workforces here that are kind of a hybrid, not one, not the other. So we try to take the strengths of both and make our program work. I picked two trucks that look pretty similar. These are actually two vehicles. One's a state vehicle, the one on the right. Can't really see it too well. The one on the left is the private vehicle. These are two that are colored in white. We have some others, but even when we had the school bus yellow that was the standard in State Highway for the longest of time, we had the contractor have their vehicles have the same paint scheme and same marking scheme. Again, much like the uniform approach, we didn't want them to separate themselves. We wanted them to all look the same. Two differences here, two main differences here, is the vehicle to the left, you really can't see it, has regular straight Maryland registration plates that anyone would have or any business would have here in the state of Maryland. The vehicle on the right has state government tags. Doesn't seem like a big difference, but one of the main differences that we found with our two different workforces is the private-owned truck cannot be deemed an emergency response vehicle here in the state of Maryland due to our Code of Maryland regulations. So it can only activate amber lights and cannot technically violate any laws in Maryland. Must pay attention to all the rules of the road. So therefore, technically, that vehicle can't pass other traffic on the shoulder of a roadway even when activating amber lights. The vehicle on the right is an approved emergency response vehicle, has a siren, has red lights that can flash, and can violate traffic laws while still showing due regard for life and property. So that is a difference in the operation of those two vehicles, and we found that our ability to have emergency response has cut down our response time and provides us, allows us to provide a more efficient and safer service to the citizens and the motorists. Another, some other differences you may find, and this isn't so overt, between a private-driven contractual model versus a government approach. Our trucks, our state trucks, average in a year about 2.4 million patrol miles, and that mileage equates to additional maintenance on the vehicles, tire, oil changes, quicker replacement of those vehicles, which is expensive. And if you have a private vendor that's providing those service, they may have some unwritten mileage limitations. They may not proactively patrol to find those motorists as often. They may wait for a call to respond to a location. Quite frankly, probably 60 to 70% of the calls that our drivers respond to, they hear and know about from scanners in the vehicle and from patrolling on the road before a traffic center ever is aware of it. So that proactive patrol we find to be very advantageous. So they may limit the patrol miles. They may pay, the private sector may pay a minimum amount and provide minimum benefits to get the greatest profit margin for their companies, as their stockholders would like them to have. So some differences between the two models. We don't see a big difference here in Maryland between the vendor and us. I do see the vendor out there proactively patrolling. We don't have any, they don't have any written guidelines to limit anything that they do, but there is some difference in how they do respond to emergency versus as a service vehicle. So some things to think about as you decide or you head towards one way or another, you know, some operational considerations here. You want to make sure that if you have a contract and you're looking to get a vendor on board, you have to give it a lot of forethought. Make sure it's all-inclusive. It's specific but yet general enough that allows you to change some of those duties or add to some of those duties of these response teams for the during the duration of the contract. I'd suggest strongly to use a proven vendor. We use a vendor here in Maryland that I am quite pleased with, and do not hesitate even a little to make a phone call or receive a phone call to give them a good endorsement should they be seeking business in another state, because they've been very good to work with. You know, established, formal make sure that you're using an established vendor that has done this before and has been proven to be able to do this. You have that formal agreement in place. Just simply try to get your workforces, if you have an embedded workforce that you're creating a hybrid, get them to simply focus on the mission and accept there's differences between the workforces. We're all in this together. We're all doing the same thing, whether we're from a contractual side or a state workforce. We're all trying to do the same thing and help these motorists provide a safe venue for our incident response teams out there on our highways, and make sure motorists aren't sitting on the shoulders any longer than they have to. And we found that was best done through good, open, honest communication and conversations, always the key, whether you're talking to your vendor or talking to your state employees about why this is happening, because quite frankly, when they see like in our case, we saw a private vendor coming on board, our state workforce got a little concerned. Are they going to be working their way out of a job? Are they going to have a job next week? How are they going to feed their families? So there became this concept that I saw this quote, and it made a lot of sense to me. Unfortunately, I saw it after the fact, but it made a lot of sense, that you must either invest a reasonable amount of time attending to those fears and feelings, or you'll squander an unreasonable amount of time trying to manage ineffective, unproductive behavior. So that goes for change in general, but I found the culture in a DOT can be a very difficult culture to change, but they have adapted pretty well in Maryland, and we're working this hybrid and to our advantage by reaching and using all the strengths of both. So that's what I have. I'll be happy to take any questions, or unless you want to wait until the end, John, to manage questions.
Well, I think there is one question in the box about what a PIN is.
Yes, that's simply a position identification number. It indicates that it's a full-time state employee. Every employee is assigned a PIN number, position identification number.
All right, thank you.
I see another question there. How's the acronym CHART identify with the traveling public? That's an interesting thing. CHART is pretty known around the nation, and it stands for Coordinated Highways Action Response Team. So we do surveys through the sponsorship, and we get good feedback, and we find that 2 out of every 3 motorists that respond back to those surveys are unaware of the CHART program. We found that interesting. So we're starting to make sure that we put ourselves out there. We have a website. We're going to start getting ourselves out there in a more marketing scheme. Sometimes that's good. They don't know who you are because they haven't broken down before maybe, but or needed our assistance at an incident. But it was an eye-opener to me to see those surveys, to see who didn't know of us. But nationally, CHART's relatively recognized, much like Georgia's HERO program and Missouri's Scout program and others. So that's yeah, 1 out of 3 do know who we are, 2 out of 3 do not.
All right, good information. I do not see any other questions or hand raised. So thank you, Scott. That was very informative. And I will now go off to our final presenter, Lacey P. Word. Lacey is the manager of Region 2 for the Tennessee DOT Highway Incident Management. Region 2 serves as the hub for Chattanooga, Tennessee, which encompasses 24 counties. Lacey has been with TDOT for 25 years, with 18 of those years being in traffic incident management. Lacey is currently an instructor for the traffic incident management and instructor for the advanced traffic incident management, and an instructor for protecting the queue and the queue truck operator training. Lacey serves on many committees and task groups representing TDOT, such as State of Tennessee's TIMS Committee, Freeway Service Patrol States Association Task Group, Regional TIM Working Group, and he served from 2014 to 2016 as the VP for Friends of Outdoor Chattanooga Group. Lacey will be providing us with an overview of a full-function patrol. Thank you, Lacey.
Hello, everyone. Can everyone hear me?
Yep, sounds good.
Good deal. All right. I think our whole panel today has done a great job. They've covered a lot of the points and things that we try to encompassed in our program here. So I'll get started. I know it's been ongoing, but give you a few things that we try to make sure we do here in Tennessee. Of course, our program, full service program, is called the HELP program. It's not an acronym, and as you see, we'll explain it a little more as we go into it. Our first generation HELP truck started roughly, I'll say, a little over 50 years ago. Back in the 60s, we tried this service patrol thing, and just through funding through the years, it got kind of pushed to the side. At the time, I think people did not see the benefit, and the miles of travel were not the same as they are today, and I think people didn't get to see the benefit.
She's saying it's
Yeah,
on the calendar for Friday. For the time sheet today, the log sheet.
Okay, talk to you later. Bye.
I can't
getting a lot of background noise.
Yeah, just a reminder to everybody, be sure you mute your phone since everybody's unmuted right now.
Gotcha. All right, HELP mission statement. Mission statement of the HELP program is to minimize traffic congestion and promote the safe movement of people and products, improve the travel environment, and work in a partnership with emergency response agencies and other TDOT units as a part of a highway incident management team. We're committed to performing all our duties in a professional manner. That's something that we highly promote, that team partnership with our brother and sister agencies. That's one of the reasons our program has been so successful. Our partnership with the Tennessee Highway Patrol and all our local agencies are a vital part of our success. We thrive on that. Here's an overview of what we have as far as our state resources. We roughly have 76 operators, 18 supervisors, 83 TMC supervisors and technicians, 85 operator trucks, 22 supervisor trucks, and a host of supporting equipment and facilities. We also have the management staff in headquarters in each region. A little more about the way our statewide program is set up. We're broken up into 4 regions. We have facilities in Knoxville, Tennessee, Nashville, Tennessee, Chattanooga, Tennessee, and Memphis, Tennessee. So we cover the whole state. Those 4 are ran independently. Here's a kind of a real quick timeline. In July of '99, we started our HELP program in Nashville and Knoxville. And the very next year, we expanded to Chattanooga and Memphis the following year. That gave us a little time to get the first 2 programs up and running and moving. It wouldn't put a bigger strain on us trying to start all 4 at the same time. Hours of operation, we operate 7 days a week, and it's roughly Tuesday through Friday is 6 a.m. to 10:30. Saturday, Sunday, and Monday we run roughly 8:30 to 8:30. So it's some long days, but we do cover 7 days a week. We are not 24 hours a day, but in each region we have operators on call to respond 24 hours a day. We work quite a bit of special events. We have assigned routes. Our routes were laid out on the premises of a 15-minute response time, so if something happened behind our operators, in the perfect world, if we made our complete route, we should be able to make a complete loop and be back to that location within 15 minutes. Here's an overview. These are old numbers. We try to just divide our units up, AM, PM, and the weekend shift. These have changed over the years. One big thing I like to mention on here, as you see down at the bottom, we have the cooperation with our maintenance force 24 hours a day. We try to effectively manage our incidents. We highly recommend our maintenance personnel to be actively involved, especially out in the rural areas where you're not actually patrolling with your service patrol. So we rely on our maintenance forces to get out there and mitigate and manage the incidents where it might take a help operator 20 minutes or 30 minutes to get to outlying county, and we have maintenance forces in that county that can actually do the same thing that we do with our units. These are some dated pictures of some of our help trucks. They vary, but we carry a various array of equipment from your traffic cone to your road signs. We do carry gasoline. Do not carry diesel anymore because there's been an issue with that. Road flares, all kinds of tools, anything that we might be able to use to help at an incident scene to increase our clearance time. One other thing, we are all EMR certified first responder. Here's a list of the equipment, as I mentioned earlier. We have hand tools, generator, air compressor, carry fuel and water, of course, all the emergency stuff. We do now, all of our trucks are equipped with message boards. They're four-wheel drive, diesel powers. We have a various array of radios. Most of the law enforcement in our area are now on our 800 megahertz tracking system, which we are on there as well, and we have our own designated channel, and they have the capability of talking to us and vice versa. Our vehicles are designated emergency vehicles. We do run red lights as well. Here's some of the items that we require of our help operators and supervisors. They go through a 9-week training period, and of course they consist of traffic control, NHI, incident management classes, EVOC, verbal judo, public relations, all of the basic sexual harassment, use of fire extinguisher. The EMS first responder, that's been changed to the EMR, which is now a national registry class, which basically means it will reciprocate from state to state. So it's a national board test that you have to pass to become a certified EMR. All of our help operators are uniform that's provided by the state, so we do require our operators to be professional at all times and maintain that way. Our dispatchers, they are, at one point in time, APCO was a requirement. We have recently changed that requirement. They're not required to be APCO trained dispatchers. Here's just a brief overview of some of the service we've provided since '99. Roughly 2,545,000 services provided. So you can break that down, and as you see, I'm not going to go through all these numbers. The number of tires changed, 185,000 times we provided fuel, provided traffic control 187,000 times. So this is kind of repetitive, guys. I'm not going to go through the numbers, but I will gladly answer any question you have about it. Relocation of vehicles and things obstructing traffic, that is a big issue and been a big success with us, with our partnering agencies, because a lot of times in managing incidents, we're stuck waiting on that tow vehicle to get there because we do not patrol in tow vehicles. So one way or another, we will relocate vehicles out of the road. So we push, pull, tug, drag, tow vehicles to the shoulder and get our lanes open. We do have a goal of 90 minutes clearance. We do a very good job of reaching that goal. Here's the thing I talked about earlier. HELP is not an acronym. It's what we do and how we do it. We take that very seriously here in Tennessee because one thing that we look at, the success of our program hinges on what we do and how we do it. Also, it impacts our economic growth in our area. So we've got a lot of support from our governor down through our commissioner with maintaining the flow of travel through our state. Here's some of our incident response trailers. This is a first generation trailer. this is what we would use in our outlying areas to get resources out there if we had to direct traffic, detour traffic. And we found over the years if we had these things parked and strategically placed around, people tend to borrow stuff off of them. So we kind of evolved and put them in an enclosed trailer. That's a disaster response trailer. If we had to go out to another remote area, we could operate and actually dispatch out of that. This is what we use now as a rural response trailer. Is everything that you saw in that first trailer stays locked up in this trailer. It's strategically located areas. They're not used for daily activities. They are only used for incidents only. So at any point in time, one of our maintenance personnel can go pick this trailer up and respond. Quick clearance slates. This is one of the big things that helped us with our incident management program. It clarifies the authority of law enforcement and TDOT to keep the roadways open. Also, it clarifies the motorist responsibilities on controlled access highways. And we do have a law to say if no serious or injury or death, motorists should move their vehicles to the shoulder. Of course, the insurance companies and truckers have agreed and bought into the language that we use in this legislation. One of the things we've done with our agencies and across the state, we've installed reference mile markers that dictate location down to the 10th of a mile. So along our interstates, when we request it, we install reference markers. So if we get a call from the motoring public, within 0.2 of a mile, we should be able to determine the exact location of that person. So they should be able to look out the front windshield or the rear windshield and give us an exact location of where they're at. And that has helped with our dispatch centers and 911 centers throughout the state. Here's some other examples of our reference markers. This is a ramp reference marker, so it's 24 west ramp 265 south. Of course, I'm from Region 2, which is the Chattanooga region, which consists of 24 counties in the southeast Tennessee area. A couple of pictures. Here's a picture of from 2000 of our original help team on our start date. These are just a few pictures of early on how we dealt with incidents. We used to get there, how do you manage that? And it took some growing pains with the local authorities, getting their confidence, I would say. And that's something that we kind of pride ourselves on. You have to gain that respect from your other emergency agencies, knowing that you do know how to move a vehicle out of the road. Once you gain that respect, they know that you have the capability to safely remove vehicles from the roadway. And what it also does is get them out of the roadway into a safe location as well. Hopefully we can get this video to play. On my desktop, it's not giving me a play option. I think it might have just popped up. Is it playing for anyone?
Well, yeah, okay, it's going again now. I'll kind of stop for a second, but it's going again now.
So it's getting loaded here for a second, so let's just wait a few seconds and it'll get played.
And there is no sound to it. There's not supposed to be any sound, just so everybody knows.
Okay. It looked like it loaded on my desktop, but it's not playing.
Just a few more seconds. I think that the whole connection is slow. I see the bar moving forward, but it may need a little bit more time. Apologies about
Okay.
While we're waiting, Lacey, there's a question about diesel. Why you weren't carrying diesel?
We found that we did not use it a whole lot. It would sit on our truck for weeks at a time and never got used. I think we have John Sullivan on here. It's from one of the other regions. And John, is that not one of the reasons why you guys, if you find a huge or a big need to carry diesel, it is an option. We can carry it if we see the need for it, but in most regions, it's been one of the things we've kind of tapered off on using.
All right, yeah, that was similar for Minnesota. I think some of the other folks in other states are mentioning similar things too as well. And you need more diesel to get a semi going than just gallons.
And I think John said they try to refresh it once a month, and it kind of became a hassle. But we do have the option. If we have a drastic need for it, it's just as easy as adding a 5-gallon can back to your truck.
Well, if you're in the interest, oh, maybe the video is going now.
Mine is not, so.
I think we're having some difficulties here. For some reason, the server is slow and is showing it for some parts and then pausing and playing, if you can see that.
Yeah, I think it kind of starts and stops. But I can easily explain. You can't really see it, but on the other side of this jackknife tractor trailer is one of our health supervisor trucks. And in the interest, we're basically waiting on a cleanup company and the record company to tow the vehicle away. We end up stopping traffic, letting one tow truck go by, and then we literally just push the tractor trailer around and onto the shoulder, which aided in traffic flow, and it let us start the cleanup process and get another lane open. So we're very adamant about doing whatever it takes to get the traffic flowing and back to normal as soon as possible. Hey, I think it's tried to start playing again.
You know, it played here real quick, but I think maybe in the interest of time, if we want to keep moving along, we're getting a little closer to the
Yes.
last little bit.
Yes, get to the next slide here. All right, just some other thing. This is actually a construction zone, and we refer to this a tunnel without a roof. We use some pretty creative ways of getting vehicles out of the roadway, as far as putting a jack under, relocating it to the shoulder in the construction zone, whatever it takes, and we got the buy-in from the police departments rather than sit there waiting on a tow truck to get it off the road. We do have a rural regional incident management task force with local fire department, police department, sheriff department, of course the Tennessee Highway Patrol. They are an integral part of this. Local agencies, traffic managers. We highly encourage our towing community to be involved in all of these actions. And of course the general public, because that's who they're serving. Here's a saying, remember when you go out into the world, stick together and watch out for traffic, guys. We have more responders, firefighters, and tow truck drivers killed every year, and this is one of the reasons why we try to do our job in the most effective manner to get our people back off the side of that road and their vehicle and going down the road, and we ultimately make a difference and save lives. That's our big goal. safe movement of people and cargo across our great state, and to keep our motoring public safe. So that is it for me. I'm open for any questions. Guys, there's my contact information. If there's anything I can do to help or information we in Tennessee can do to help y'all, please contact me.
All right, there's a question in the box, I guess for all the presenters who may still be on the call, and I guess for other folks too. If you do nights and weekends, what changes do you make in operations? How much do you scale back your coverage? Is it fewer trucks? Are they staged and then respond? Are they still out patrolling? Challenges, recommendations do you have for off-peak?
Yes, like you say, we patrol until roughly 10:30 at night, and it's a full crew of people. If the incident rolls on into the night, that night shift will stay over. If it's on into the early morning, the morning shift will come in early. So we're very flexible on what we do. We have that freedom to do that and manage our traffic. That is our ultimate goal. So when we're open, we carry a full gamut of operators and dispatch. One key thing I did not mention, our TMC, which dispatches our help truck, the TMC itself is manned 24 hours a day. So we manage traffic. If they get a major incident or a minor incident that's blocking traffic that's not going to be cleared in a timely manner, the on-call supervisor and on-call help operator will respond out whatever time it is if we don't have people out patrolling.
And then there's a question about, do the help trucks, do they have a push bar, or are they using a winch, or do they have, what kind of equipment are they using for pushing or pulling or dragging?
We have a full push bumper with a winch incorporated into the push bumper. Now, if we're going to pull something, we have a full gamut of J-hooks and clusters that we can hook the vehicles and tow them off the roadway.
All right, thanks. Any other questions on the open mic for Lacey? All right, and some good comments in the comment box referring to overnight shift operations. So I think I'll say a big thank you to all of our presenters. I think we got a really good overview here of not only different patrol models, but also different staffing models. So I think that was a good summary, or not a good summary, a good overview of some of the things that are out there. So thanks a bunch to everybody who's out there, and I will turn it back to Liz or to Sam to talk about the next session topic.
Hey Sam, that last question, all of our shifts are irregular shifts, so all of our shifts do get a shift differential pay. And we get hazard pay.
Very good, thank you. Liz?
Thanks, Sam, and thank you to all of our presenters today. I'm going to run through what we can cover on our next topic here. As many of you know, and for anyone who's new, we vote on each topic for the following session at the end of this session. So we are looking at ideas from you all for what to cover in the next session. The first topic on the list here, debris removal, actually was recommended by Missouri DOT, who's currently testing debris removal devices on trucks. This session would focus on operations for debris removal, which, as many of you know, is one of the #1 lane blocking incident calls. So we take a deeper dive into debris removal. The next option would be funding. We talked a little bit today on how the work zone coverage is funded in Wisconsin. This would be exploring different funding models for patrols where you might be able to look at different resources for funding. The third option would be working with other first responders, how safety service patrols collaborate with police, fire, EMS, and tow, both on scene and off scene. So how do you prepare with first responders? Do you work in conjunction with them in trainings? And then also looking on scene for police, fire, EMS, and tow collaborations. Then we looked at revisiting some of the topics that we covered now. It's been about 4 years since we first started these sessions and webinars, so we thought it was time to take a look back at some of the initial topics that we covered, 3 of which are listed here. Standard operating procedures, taking a look at different state standard operating procedures and how they go about implementing them. Performance measures is another option to explore further. You heard it a lot today on today's call from the different presenters. Various performance metrics were mentioned, whether it was feedback from motorists, the number of assistance and incidents that were responded to, the time it took to respond to those incidents. These are all different performance measures, and the way that they can be used varies. It can be used to measure a particular employee's performance. It can be looked at for overall program performance year to year, and of course it can also be looked at as an opportunity to present to legislators and other dignitaries who are reviewing the program and its value in that jurisdiction. So performance measures could also be explored as a topic. And then the next one would be training as an option, taking a deeper look at how we train the Safety Service Patrol operators who are out on the road each day and responding to these incidents. I know there are a lot of best practices when it comes to training. We also have another option in there, and we encourage you to enter that other question or topic into the chat box for us. We are always looking for your feedback and for your ideas. This session is really built based off of what you all need to hear in the industry, the best practices that you're looking to learn a little bit more about in the areas that you would like to explore further or hear about from your peers. So if you have any other ideas, similar to Missouri DOT, who had the debris removal idea, we did not have that as a list option on our last call, and that was presented to us via the survey, which is also available to you. You should all be receiving a link to the survey after this call, but I've posted it here as well. We encourage you to provide feedback. I have a feeling we'll be getting some notes of technical difficulties after today's call, but we also really want to hear from you on the topics. Were the presentations relevant to what you do? Did you find it to be useful and applicable to your patrol? So that survey really helps us to refine these sessions and to make sure that we're delivering what you all need to make these sessions work well for the industry. So I see some great votes coming in here, and we will take a look at that and then notify you all of the next session date and the session topic. If you are interested in presenting on any of these topics, we also encourage you to contact us. The email address that you can reach us at is sst@safehighways.org. Thank you all. Sam, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Liz. I do want to thank everybody that made this happen. Thank you, John, for doing a great job emceeing. Thank you to all 4 our presenters. Liz, we couldn't do this without you, and the National Operations Center of Excellence as well. Thank you, Nilo. All of you who attended, you care enough about what you do to improve safety on the highways, and I thank you all for the time you spent here. We did a good overview, I think, of most of the basic models, and we touched on a few things like unions and law enforcement. If you have questions on anything that you might have heard we didn't go in to enough depth on, or you just want to talk with somebody, maybe a union is something you're considering, use the SSP@safehighways.org email address to communicate with Liz or I about anything you're trying to get information within the Safety Service Patrol industry, and we'll try to help you out as best we're able. We hold these calls quarterly, of course, but in between as things arise, and if we can be a resource for you, we'd be happy to direct you to some of your peers who may have the answers you've been looking for. So hopefully you found value in this session, and Giovanni mentioned that he's going to add the tax question, the tax dollars to his survey. So even if it's something as simple as that, you got it. I think it'll help your programs to stay on the road and get better and grow, hopefully. So appreciate your time today. Watch for emails about our surveys and our next upcoming event. So thank you, everyone. Stay safe out there. Appreciate your time. Bye now.